Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. Now, what is a companion video? Well, I'm glad that you asked. You see, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we take a little bit of time to take some live questions. However, we don't always have time to get around to all the live questions that come in, but I want to make sure those questions you send in get answered on a video, so I take up those unused questions and we address them here on companion videos. Now, today is Monday. We had a bunch of questions we didn't get around to on the John Campea Show this morning, so we're going to answer those ones right now. So let's get right to it, and we're going to start things off with the first one today from Dixon Whitesides, who writes, "Greetings from South Carolina." Well, greetings, Dixon. "I just want to congratulate you on the game last night." Well, thank you. It's all me. I am the reason that the Patriots won out. But it was a lot of fun, Congratulate you on the game last night. Surprised at how low scoring it was. As for Tom Brady, all hail to the king, baby. We are all children of Brady now. He now has the 6 Super Bowl rings on his mighty gauntlet. It was awfully fun to see. And I'll tell you what, I loved that game. And I was loving the game even when I still thought the Patriots were going to lose. Like when it was 3-3, I was eating it up because to me, that was a real football game. Hard-nosed, in the trenches, defense, battling it out every single play. I loved it. And I even tweeted out when it was still 3-3, I'm like, this game is so stressful. And some people going, oh, it's boring because I only like touchdowns. That's it. That's all football is touchdowns. Get out of here. That's not football. That's Madden. Now, you like Madden, that's cool. I love that game. Even when I thought my Patriots were going to lose, I still love that game, and I thought it was great. Anyway, let's move on here. Joe Byram writes, there they are. Don't you see them? Evil, pure evil, simple from the 8th dimension. Oh. I want to say Big Trouble in Little China, but it might be Buckaroo Banzai. I know it's one of them. Okay, I'm going to say Big Trouble, but that might be Buckaroo Banzai. But it's one of them. I'm sure you guys will tell me in the comment section below which one it was, or if it was another one I'm just missing completely. Anthony Around Town writes, John, you only get to pick one to happen in your lifetime. Have a named character role, in Star Wars, or Anne gets to spend an afternoon with Tom Hanks. Oh, well, that's easy. Anne gets to spend an afternoon with Tom Hanks. Listen, guys, for those of you married, you know this. For those of you who are going to think about getting married at some point, this is true. She comes first. I mean, might be a little bit old-fashioned. I don't know. Maybe that's not I don't know. But when you get married, guys, she comes first. And that's one of Anne's big dreams, and I would take that. If Lucas called me right now and said, John, I'm talking to JJ and everybody, we can give you a big character role in a Star Wars, but I'm also good friends with Tom Hanks and I can get Anne an afternoon coffee with Tom Hanks. What do you want? I'm taking the afternoon coffee with Tom Hanks for Anne. Because that's what being married is, guys. That's what being married is. All right. Seer Ivan Bennett writes, also, love Robin Ashley. She says my name right. Well, I hope I get your name right, Seer. I'm awful. I'm like the worst when it comes to pronouncing names right, but I'm hoping it's Seer. I could be wrong. All right, Murray Reich writes, I'm surprised Goodell survived the snap. Oh, no kidding. There are some people out there who think like, oh, Goodell and Kraft and Brady are all... Brady hates Roger Goodell. He hates him. And Roger Goodell don't have no positive feelings about Brady either. And you know it's one of the most painful things in the world that Goodell has to do, handing that trophy over to them. But, I'm surprised he survived the snap myself. All right, Ezekiel Fuentes Jr. writes, Boss Logic is heading Robert Pattinson might be the new Batman. Thoughts? I just don't see it happening. Now let's, again, there are about 50 actors you could name that I would be totally great with playing Batman. Surprisingly to me, Robert Pattinson would be one of them. I've been telling you guys, forget the Twilight stuff. Robert Pattinson is one hell of an actor. If you don't think so, show me somebody who doesn't think so, and I'll show you somebody who hasn't watched any of his movies since Twilight. Because this dude is a boss. when it comes to it. I just don't think it's going to be the case. Look, Warner Brothers already went through the whole thing of casting the right guy to play Batman with Ben Affleck and getting crap from everybody. You got Ben Affleck? And I can just see it now. If Warner Brothers cast Robert Pattinson, there'd all be these whiny crybabies who don't watch movies. All they watch is like 5 or 6 movies a year that are comic book movies, and they don't watch anything else. And they would cry and cry and cry. Why'd you get the Twilight guy to play Batman? Well, because you don't understand. The guy's a wicked actor. But Warner Bros. Just be asking for a lot of problems. Like, let's put it this way. I would be all for it if that was true. I just don't see it being real. I'd be all for it, but I just don't see it being real. But here's hoping. Who knows? Mark Hansen writes, I never had any friends later on like the ones I had when I was 12. Jesus is anyone. Dude, that's Stand By Me. Ba-bum-bum-ba. That's Stand By Me. That movie is filled, or was it Sandlot? No, that was Stand By Me. That movie's filled with some great lines. I love that movie. Stand By Me is awesome. Do I love Sandlot even more? I might like Sandlot even more, but I love Stand By Me. Eat That Horse writes, I like that username. I know they won't do it, but it'd be interesting if this quote unquote younger Batman were actually Dick Grayson. He's taken up the mantle many times in the comics. True he has. And you know what? My favorite all-time moment in any comic book in history, for those of you who've watched me for a while, you've heard me say this before. My all-time favorite moment in any comic book ever was at the conclusion of the Nightfall series. You know, when Bane broke Batman's back and Batman went away for a while, and then Jean-Paul Azrael became Batman, and then Dick Grayson had to come in, and Robin got all messed up by Azrael, and then Bruce comes back and takes back the mantle and blah, blah, blah. And eventually he still needs to heal a bit. He asks Dick to take over. Dick's pissed off. And he's like, why the hell did you not come to me in the first place? Why did you go to Jean-Paul? Why did you go to Azrael? Why did you go outside the family instead of coming to me first when you needed somebody to take up the mantle of Batman? What the hell, Bruce? What the hell? And it's just this whole thing, but it concludes with Bruce putting his hand on Dick's shoulders and basically says, this is the way it is between fathers and sons. It's one of the most beautiful, awesome moments in comic book history. I love it. And the defining moment, in my opinion, of the relationship between Bruce and Dick. It's awesome. Now, I agree, Eat That Horse. That's not what they're going to do. But it is something they could do in the future. It's something they could do in the future. I mean, it's really unfortunate that Nightwing movie got derailed because Matt Reeves was dragging his ass trying to get a Batman who they were getting around to finally doing Batman like a year later than they wanted. And it threw off all the timing for Nightwing, and the director had to walk away and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that was a big mess. But it might be something they come around to at some point. I don't think that's what they're doing now, obviously. But at some point, don't count that storyline out. It certainly is something they may do later on. Matthew Mella. And by the way, for those of you who don't know who Dick Grayson is, he's the original Robin. I shouldn't just take for granted that everybody knows that. But for those of you who do not know, Dick Grayson, who we're talking about, was the original Robin. He later moved on and became Nightwing. And then as Nightwing, sometimes he takes over the mantle of the Bat for Bruce from time to time when he needs it. Okay, Matthew writes, I wish Superman would come back. Oh, you and me both, brother. You and me both. I mean, I don't just want him to come back, though. I want Henry Cavill. I mean, I'll take Superman any way I can get him, but I want Henry Cavill back. He's been my favorite Superman up to this point. It doesn't look like that's happening, but let's keep our fingers crossed. Mad Real Cinema writes, why TV spots during Super Bowl and not full trailers? Looking at you, Toy Story and Avengers. Because it's $5 million per 30 seconds. Say that again. It's $5 million, maybe more, for a 30-second spot on the Super Bowl. $5 million. That means if you want to do a standard 2-minute, 30-second trailer, you're looking at $25 million for one commercial to play once. That's why when you see there are trailers that you can watch online and in the movie theaters, and then there are TV spots that play on TV. Because TV commercial time is expensive under normal circumstances. Super Bowl? It's like $5 million a pop. Why do you think not every little movie is trying to advertise their movie during the Super Bowl? Because they can't afford it. $25 million would cost to play a full trailer for one commercial, one time. That ain't worth it. That would be idiotic. And honestly, studios these days are even starting to question whether, marketing budgets are finite. Do we want to spend $5 million on just one spot? I don't know. But anyway, that's why they play 30-second spots during the Super Bowl and not full-fledged 2.5-minute trailers. That's why. Let's see. Craig Carpenter writes, "Hey, John, who is Mephisto, the Marvel character?" Well, Craig, simple Google search will probably do it, but I'll tell you, Mephisto is basically this demon character. Certainly not like the most powerful character in the Marvel Universe, but a demonic character, has gone toe-to-toe a number of times with Silver Surfer. If I'm not mistaken, he made his first appearance with Silver Surfer. He's also, thrown down with... he's been involved in Fantastic Four. He's thrown down with Doctor Doom a number of times. I believe he's messed it up with Ghost Rider now and again. But yeah, he's a demonic demon sort of character. And I don't know a whole hell of a lot about him. But, I know that much. So the rest you can probably look up. Mike Thompson writes, "Hear me and rejoice, for there is only one quarterback with the might, nay, the nobility, to hold not one, but 6 Super Bowl rings." Of course, that's Mike channeling his inner Maw, and this little speech he gave about Thanos. "There's never been a being with the nobility, nay, the might, nay, the nobility to wield not one, but 2 Infinity Stones." And I was saying that on Twitter myself the other day. There has never been one with the might, nay, the nobility, to wield not one, but 6 Super Bowl rings. He's the only guy to ever do it. Might be the only guy ever to do it. It's kind of crazy. All hail Brady. We're all children of Brady now. Holland Love writes, "Tom Brady 12 is the greatest of all time. GOAT. More interceptions than points, and he still won the game." Well, all the points were him, though. That touchdown was because of those 2 big completions to Gronk, including down on the 2-yard line. Then they just punched it in from there. So those are all his points anyway. But what's funny? I believe in the Super Bowl, he threw 260 yards, including that big march down the field that got them their touchdown. And they won. Last year in the Super Bowl, he threw for over 500 yards. Wrap your head around that. Threw for over 500 yards, and they still lost. This year, he did just enough, and they won, and all hail the GOAT. Ash M writes, "If Suicide Squad is a reboot, what new characters would you want to see, or returning characters? For me, Killer Frost, I don't know. Honestly, it's one of those types of questions that whatever the filmmaker wants to do. I'm not going to create pre-existing expectations for myself. I don't know if Killer Frost would be the right move. They're kind of using her on television, but they're using Flash on television. Yeah, I get that, and I don't know if that's the wisest thing that they're doing in both. Although I did like Ezra Miller's Flash in Justice League. I did. I don't know if we're ever going to see him in the movies again, but I would like to, because I thought it was pretty good. So no, I'm not going to pick any specific characters. I like just letting the filmmakers, in this situation, James Gunn, I like letting him make that decision and then just going to enjoy. I don't want to create these false expectations for myself of, it's got to have this character, it's got to have this character, and then they don't do that character, then I'm disappointed. And it's like, well, I'm just want to see what they have to do. I'm just still fascinated by this whole James Gunn doing a Suicide Squad. And for those of you who haven't heard, apparently it's not a sequel. It's like a retooling. It's going to be all different characters and new cast members. Maybe they'll have 1 or 2 returning, who knows? But it sounds like it's going to be a very different Suicide Squad from that last film. All right, Cobra writes, "How to Train Your Dragon, now a contender for all-time great trilogies?" I wouldn't say it's a real contender, but here's what I think. And you guys, when you have a chance to see How to Train Your Dragon 3, you weigh in on this too and tell me your 2 cents worth. But the third one is great. I don't like it as much as 1 and 2, but there's not that big of a gap between my enjoyment of 1 and 2 and 3. It's a very close gap. 3 is wonderful. It's fantastic. I loved it. It cannot literally and legitimately compete against Star Wars trilogy, Lord of the Rings, Godfather, those types of things. But, the position it is in now, in my opinion anyway, is if you're going to have conversations about the greatest trilogy of all times, How to Train Your Dragon is in the conversation now. It's not a legit contender for the number one spot, but it's in the conversation. You know, I think you got to have it in the conversation with your Indiana Jones trilogies, with your Toy Story trilogies, with things like that. It's in the conversation. Because these films have just been marvelous. All three of them. Just fantastic stuff. And, you know, I did a little review of How to Train Your Dragon 3 on the John Campea show earlier today. And it's up on my YouTube channel. You can go see that. But honestly, guys, I highly recommend going to check it out. I also saw Lego Movie 2. It's good. Lego Movie 2 is worth seeing. But it is nowhere near as good as the original Lego movie. And you guys know how much I love that original Lego movie. I love that original Lego movie. But if you could only choose between seeing How to Train Your Dragon 3 or Lego Movie 2, I'd say How to Train Your Dragon 3. See them both if you can. But if you can only pick one, I'd say see How to Train Your Dragon 3. All right. Roman Bryant writes, you think a movie will soon make $1 billion domestically? I don't know about that. I really don't. Now, one film has come close, and that's Star Wars The Force Awakens. Star Wars The Force Awakens. Let me just pull it up here. All right. Star Wars The Force Awakens got close at $936 million. So it got close. Nothing else comes within a whiff. Even back in the day, Avatar, 760. Not really close. Black Panther made $700 million domestically. A full $300 million away from $1 billion. That's not a small amount of money. A full $300 million it missed $1 billion by, domestically. Even Avengers Infinity War, $678 million. Look, it's going to happen at some point, someday. But anytime soon? I don't think so. Not anytime soon. But you know what? It's always some little film that comes along, surprises us, and like, what? That's the new box office champion? And maybe that happens. But I certainly don't see anything breaking it in the immediate future. Certainly not this year. Probably not next year either. Probably looking at 2021, 2022. Maybe something in those years comes up. But Star Wars The Force Awakens by a mile is the biggest domestic film of all time. And it didn't get to it. And then Avengers Infinity War didn't even come within a whiff of $1 billion domestically. Black Panther hardly got close. I mean, at $700 million, that sounds like it's close. But again, when you consider that's a full $300 million short, it's very tough to imagine one doing it anytime soon. It'll happen at some point. I don't think anytime soon. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Maybe we'll be surprised. Okay. Eric Brooks writes, X-Men nod on the poster TV spot for Endgame. No, there's no X-Men nod in that spot. ZOMG Ruler writes, sweet victory song was screwed, justice for SpongeBob. You know what? I didn't see the halftime show. I had a bunch of you guys ask me, are you going to watch the halftime show at halftime? Or are you going to watch the NXT halftime wrestling match? And I said I'm going to watch the halftime show. However, I had a whole bunch of friends over watching the Super Bowl, and a bunch of them are wrestling fans. And they asked, hey, can we put on the wrestling match during halftime? So what am I going to say? No, so we put on the wrestling match. It was a pretty good wrestling match, but I didn't get to see the halftime show where the SpongeBob thing was done, so I can't comment on that, ZOMG Ruler. Marie Seifring writes, 2 Marvel commercials during the Super Bowl. New material, more sad but determined faces. Love Nebula and Tony. Yeah, I like that too. That was pretty cool. Non-Marvel, Jason Bateman elevator commercial. Pretty good. Congrats to the Pats. Again, I think my overall favorite commercial, and 1 minute I hate it, and 1 minute I think it's the most genius thing ever, and Rob and I did talk about it this morning on the John Campea show, was that Bud Light Game of Thrones commercial. I still haven't 100% decided if I think it's the stupidest thing I've ever seen or the absolute greatest thing I've ever seen, but it's the one I obsess over the most. When I think about the Super Bowl spots, my mind doesn't go right to Endgame, and it doesn't even go to Toy Story, and it doesn't go to Captain Marvel, and it doesn't go to the Artois beer commercial. It doesn't go to the Jason Bateman one, but I did like that Jason Bateman elevator one very much. But It's that damn Game of Thrones one. That's the one that I just keep thinking about. It's so strange. Okay, let's move on here. Matthew Grant writes, where did Matthew go? There he is. After the Fox deal, I think Kevin Feige should make the Books of Doom. What do you guys think? I hope this makes it in this time. Love what you do. Well, you've asked that before, and I probably answered this question on a companion video before, Matthew. You're just going to have to accept a couple of things. Kevin Feige doesn't make a movie just for the sake of making it. He makes movies that fit in with his overall MCU strategy. And he's just not going to cherry pick some story at random, say, oh, let's just do that one for the hell of it. It has to be something that fits into his overall arching MCU strategy. So there's one strike against Books of Doom. The other thing you got to keep in mind is this. I'm just going to pull up a statistic here to make sure I'm not too far off base on this. The other thing you got to keep in mind, though, is this. Just prepare yourself for disappointment, even if he does. Because if he does do Books of Doom, it's probably not going to be anything like it is in the comics. Civil War is hardly anything like Civil War in the comics. There are some massive foundational differences between Civil War, the movie, and Civil War in the comics. Movies like X-Men Days of Future Past, magnificent movie, nothing like the comic books at all. All I'm saying is, I think either one, it's not something he would do because he's not just going to throw in random stories that aren't part of his overall strategy and direction for the MCU. But second is, if he does decide he can fit that into the overall strategy and direction of the MCU, be prepared that it's probably not going to be anything like what you remember. It'll be radically different because he'll alter it and change it to fit the MCU because the MCU comes first. The movies and the direction and the world building that he's doing come first before any comic story, before any character. And that is why they've been so successful. So just be prepared for that, Matthew. That's all I'm saying. Just be prepared. All right. Eric Brooks writes, just wondering if anyone's seen the X-Men nod on the poster in the new TV spot for There is no X-Men nod in any poster. It's just not. Jacob Ibarra writes, hey, John, I hear a lot of people saying Aquaman underperformed domestically. Idiotic. That's an idiotic statement. But yet it earned more than Thor Ragnarok and other movies with already good established heroes. What's with the hate? Wait a second. Who on earth is suggesting that Aquaman underperformed in the domestic box office? Aquaman made $323 million at the domestic box office. If you see anybody telling you it underperforms, smack them in the mouth. Well, verbally. Verbally smack them in the mouth. Don't do that. I'm not condoning violence. Verbally smack them in the mouth. That's the most ridiculous, idiotic thing in the world. At $323 million domestic, it's so ridiculously overperformed, it's almost hard to fathom. It's almost hard to fathom. So again, anybody who tries to suggest to you that Aquaman underperformed at the domestic box office, just don't pay any attention to anything they ever say for the rest of their lives, because that person's an idiot. It is an idiotic thing to say. That is an overperforming number if there has ever been. There is no way you can even remotely joke about $323 million for Aquaman, for heaven's sakes, making it the domestic box office and calling that underperforming. That is one of the most ludicrous, stupidest things I have heard all day. So pay no attention to them, Jacob. Pay no attention to them whatsoever. Zelda Master 702 writes, I agree with John on the Endgame trailer. I'm in the same boat as you guys as the movie, but this trailer was lackluster. See, here's the thing. Where this is coming from was earlier today on the John Campea show. We were talking about the Endgame spot. And somebody had written in an email, and this was the topic on the show, basically saying, hey, are people who aren't hardcore fans, are they really going to get anything out of this trailer? And honestly, the answer was no. No. I'll tell you right now, it was a perfectly fine spot for people like me who am completely predisposed to wanting to go and see Endgame. I'm completely into it already. But that's not the job of a trailer. And it's certainly not the job of a TV spot. The job of a TV spot is to get the people who aren't already completely on board and getting them more excited. And that spot did not do that. And my anecdotal evidence for that is simply this. I was driving into the studio this morning, and it's raining in LA, which means nobody knows how to drive in this town when it's raining. So it took me like 50 minutes, not 50, nearly an hour, just to get to the studio this morning. So I had time to get through like 3 of my favorite podcasts. 2 of them were sports-based podcasts. One of them was a news talk radio podcast. And on all of them, all 3 of them talked about the Super Bowl spots. And they all talked about their favorite Super Bowl spots. One of them did a top 5. The other just referenced some of their favorites, right? Now remember, this isn't a movie podcast. These aren't movie shows. These are average people, in different walks, news talk radio, sports radio, talking about what really jumped out to them and they really loved watching. None of them mentioned the Avengers Endgame spot. None. 0. One of them did mention the Toy Story spot. I think there was a reference to a Captain Marvel spot, but it didn't make their favorites list. But I think one of them referenced the Captain Marvel spot. One of them definitely put the Toy Story spot amongst their favorites. And then a lot of talk about the Bud Light Game of Thrones, the Jason Bateman commercial, the NFL 100 commercial, and a bunch of them. None of them were talking about Avengers Endgame. That's it. There's no debating whether this is right. That's all the proof you need right there. Non-hyper movie fans talking about spots that excited them, and none of them even mentioned the Avengers Endgame spot. So now you can get my buddy, Robert Meyer Burnett, who thinks they shouldn't do any trailers at all. So he thought it was perfect, but he's not the guy that these trailers and these TV spots, let alone a $5 million spot during the Super Bowl, are trying to appeal to. They're trying to appeal those people who are in the ESPN podcast, the News Talk Radio, but the average moviegoer, and that spot did nothing to increase excitement. Even Ashley mentioned today, she goes, I got excited for it, Ashley said, but I was with a bunch of people watching the Super Bowl and none of them seemed to care. And to me, that means the TV spot failed. I was excited. I loved it, but I'm not the guy. I'm already going to the movie. I'm buying 20 tickets to it already. It's all those other people that are not yet sold on going to it. You got to ramp up their excitement with your $5 million TV spot, and they didn't do it. And that's it. Now, you can say you love the trailer. That's great. I can say I love the trailer, and that's great. But the unarguable fact of the matter is, for the vast majority of the people who are not hardcore into it like you and me, it was a meh spot to them. It didn't get them more excited for the movie. And that, I always say, is the job of a piece of marketing. Take the needle and get it revved up for your people's anticipation of a movie, and it didn't do that for the average movie-going fan. So it is what it is. The movie's going to be awesome, and I loved it, but as a piece of marketing, it failed in its job. It failed in its job. I'll just say that right out. Sam writes, there wasn't even an Endgame title card in the spot. That's true. That makes me worried people who aren't Marvel fans won't even know that it was an Endgame trailer. Well, I'm not worried about that, Sam. I think everybody, once you see Chris Evans and you see the walking, talking raccoon and you see Tony Stark and you see, all these characters, I think there may be some people maybe didn't realize that was even an Endgame trailer. Maybe some. But I would propose that it is a very small percentage. So I don't think that spot did the job of getting people more excited, but did people even recognize it was an Endgame trailer? I think so. There may have been some who didn't, but for the most part, I think they did. So I'm not worried about that part myself. All right. Lee Mallinson writes, wish they explored Steve being Nomad in Infinity War. That would have been pointless. Then the shield shot would have had more of an effect. Didn't even feel like he stopped being Cap. Well, look, the fact this is the thing. It doesn't matter what you call him, okay? You can call him Captain America. You can call him Steve Rogers. You can call him Cap. You can call him Captain. He's still the same guy. the whole Nomad thing, he didn't suddenly stop being Steve Rogers and was transformed by alien cosmic powers into another being that was a totally different being. It's the same character. It's the same character. Nobody cared about Nomad. Nobody cared about any of that kind of stuff. It would have served the story in absolutely zero way. And those of us watching, knowing that he's been without his shield since the end of Civil War, to the point that T'Challa had to say, somebody get this guy a shield. And he's Captain America, he doesn't have a shield. And so he got these Wakandan shields, and they were cool and everything, but they weren't his shield. For him to pick up the shield again. You don't need to know anything about Nomad for that to have impact. Not at all. And it's not like when he was Nomad, that was just a different moniker he went by. It doesn't change anything. So I don't think that was a problem, Lee. I'll tell you what, I don't think that was a problem. And you certainly didn't need to waste any more screen. There was already so much jam-packed in that movie. It would have been absolutely pointless to squeeze another minute of storytelling in to tell some other story that didn't even really need to be told. In my opinion, at any rate. But I'm telling you, man, when I saw Steve lacing up that shield, you know that, what's that, who's the kid in 21 Jump Street? Why am I forgetting? Jonah Hill. You know that Jonah Hill meme, that animated GIF that everybody uses now about excitement? It's Jonah Hill going, that's totally me. When they showed Captain America putting that shield back on, Lee, I was losing my freaking mind. And I didn't need for them to go into a Nomad storyline that nobody cares about in Infinity War that was already too long and overpacked with stuff. It wasn't necessary. Okay. Frost 1977 writes, saw I'm guessing you mean Black Panther. It was okay. I enjoyed the part with Claw, but KM, I don't know what that is, lost me. I think you probably mean Killmonger, guys. Please don't use abbreviations. Took me out of the film. In my bottom 5 MCU films, can't get into my top 7 without Cap. Well, okay. I mean, that's cool. I personally thought Black Panther was great. I thought it was used some great classic narrative tropes that I thought were used very, very well. I thought the character building was really great. I love the additional world building of Wakanda. Some questionable things here and there, and some questionable CGI at some parts. But overall, I think that's a great movie. I don't think it should be nominated for Best Picture, but I thought it was great. But hey, all film is subjective, and just because I thought it was great doesn't mean you think you should need to think it's great. I don't necessarily know if I think it's top 5 MCU film or not, but the MCU has over 20 films, and most of them are really damn good. So top 5 is tough to crack. But you know what? Hey, if it didn't work for you, no problem whatsoever. Let's see. Lezygo writes, hold on to Ashley. Can't wait to see you on the big screen. Yeah, Ashley's going to break. Yeah, I keep telling people where that's coming from is I keep telling people don't expect to see Ashley on the John Campea show for much longer because she's just successful. I mean, she's great at what she does. She's charming. She's getting a lot of modeling and acting gigs, and it's just a matter of time before she gets so many of them that she's just not going to have time to do our show anymore. So I'm just saying, let's just enjoy Ashley while she's on the show. Just don't expect her to be around too long. All right. Hollid Love writes, Bud Knight jobbed to the Game of Thrones guy, but he's the Bud Knight. Oh, he did not job. That's the Mountain. All right? That's the Mountain. I love the Bud Knight in the commercials, but if Bud Knight is fighting the Mountain, the Bud Knight is going to get his head crushed. That's not jobbing. Well, it is in a way, but that's the proper order of things. The Bud Knight losing to the Mountain is the proper way of things. That is the way of nature and the way of life, and absolutely the correct thing happened. He was the Bud Knight, but R.I.P. Bud Knight, you weren't around long enough. Chris Hidrogo writes, so have you and Robert seen the Titans show? You know, Chris, I get asked that at least 3 times a week. I get asked if I've seen the Titans show, and the answer is no. I've not seen it. I'm not going to get the DC streaming service for just Titans. It's not enough to me, especially since I thought all the marketing for Titans was terrible. Now, I'm hearing from people that it's pretty good. So I'm curious to watch it once they add more original shows, like Swamp Thing. Once they add more shows, and I'm paying money to get more than just Teen Titans, or just Titans they're calling it now, and I'm paying to get more than just Titans, I will get it, I will get the streaming service, and I will watch it. But until that happens, no. And I don't think Robert is a subscriber to the DC service either, and so I don't think he's seen it either. But I'll watch it eventually, just once they add more content. Lizygo writes, you think Feige will give us a Hulk versus Thing fight? I don't know. I mean, the Hulk stuff is tough to do. You can't get a standalone Hulk movie because of the rights issues with Universal. It would have to be really forced. And again, Kevin Feige is not, let's just do something for the hell of it. If he can come up with something that gives us a legitimate reason for something to happen in the MCU that fits in with his overall strategy, he'll do it, but he's not going to do it just for the hell of doing it. You know what I mean? And that's why he's so good, and that's why they've been so successful up till now. It would be interesting. One of the very first comics I ever bought was one of the many Hulk versus the Thing issues. One of the first comics I ever bought. Now, obviously, Hulk will win that fight every time, but especially in the movie world. But I would like to see it. I just don't know if we're going to get that or not. And I don't want it to get it just for the hell of force feeding it in. That's some junior level crap. Don't just force it in for the sake of putting it in. So if there's a way that it fits in with his direction, he'll do it. If not, he won't do it, and that's totally good. Jaron Morris writes, thoughts on Khabib's suspension? $500,000 is unfair. Yeah, it is unfair. It was unreasonable and unfair, but hey, it is what it is. Cinematic Galaxy writes, over under 20% that Thanos is in Captain Marvel. I say over. 20% is a low number. Look, if you just straight up ask me, do I think Thanos will be in Captain Marvel? I would guess no. But if you're going to set the over-under number at 20%, I'll take the over. I don't think 50, but I do think over 20. So I'll go with you on that. I will take the over 20% that Thanos will be in Captain Marvel. Okay, let's go on here. Matthias Peterson writes, what have always appealed to me is the burden/responsibility of Superman, the fact that he always have to be in complete control of his powers, like the bull in a china shop. Very true. That's a key thing to Superman. And I've often wondered, it sounds silly, but honestly, Superman is like me and watching a sports game, getting right into it. Because, when Brady makes a big completion or they picked off Goff or whatever, I slap the table. Yeah, right? But if Superman does that, he could crack the world in half. So, yeah, that is always one big thing about Superman, is constantly having to be in control at all times, which is the running joke, but it begs the question, what's Superman like during sex? That would make a lot of control issues, right? I guess. Lucas Wilson writes, hey, John, Robert, and Ashley. Hoping you are having a good day. I'm having a great day so far, Lucas. A question from my father. When Doctor Strange looked into all the futures in Avengers 4 and saw only one outcome, was he accounting for Captain Marvel in those? Well, I think the best way to answer that is to see he wasn't taking anything into account. He was just looking into the future and looking at the possible outcomes. So I don't think he was putting anybody in consideration. He's just looking at all the variations of the universes and in which way, how many ways does it actually work out for us? And I think those would all, if Captain Marvel is in the universe, and she is, I would just assume that she is, figured into that equation. So without having seen Captain Marvel yet, and without having seen Endgame yet, and simply speculating as a fan, I would say that yes, any of his looking into the possible outcomes, alternatives, and futures, that it would be things that he didn't even know about. I'm sure there'd be many people he's never met that would be part of that, and I would just assume on that level that would also include Captain Marvel. I have no reason to suspect otherwise, so I'm going to say yes. It's just my guess. Now, maybe Captain Marvel happens, and we realize that the answer is no. Maybe Endgame happens, and we realize the actual real answer was no. But I'm going to go ahead and say yes. I think he probably did, that she was part of those equations. All right. Matthias Peterson. Oh, this is probably a follow-up to the last question he sent in. Matthias Peterson writes, or a loving slap on the butt to Lois might squash her like a bug. Yeah, like my girlfriend, Lois. Just a little tap might send her flying through a wall and killing her, right? Just Superman always got to be in control of what he's doing at all times. All right. Royce Freeman writes, If a movie studio buys a script just to maintain the property and there's a controversial ending and they remove it, can you still use that ending? No. Once the studio buys a script, that story belongs to them. Now, they can do whatever they want with it. They can change the ending. They can do this. They can do that. They can do the other thing. But even if they take something out, it still belongs to them. Once you sell that script to them, everything in that script is theirs, including your ending. Even if they don't use that ending for a movie, it belongs to them, and it's available to them to use in another movie at some point if they want to. They own the script. So now, there are exceptions. If you have a really good literary agent, if you have a really good agent, they could negotiate in, hey, anything that's in our screenplay that doesn't make it into your movie, we retain the rights of. Or maybe you can get them to write that into the contract, and maybe you can get the studio to agree to it, although I don't know why a studio would agree to that. But other than that, like, look, if I sold you a chair, right? I sold you a chair. Has the seat, the back, and 4 legs. I sell it to you. Now, let's say you take one of the legs off and replace it with an aluminum leg. Well, I don't get that leg back. It's still theirs. They bought it. It belongs to them. They can do whatever they want with that leg. But I don't get to sneak into their house in the middle of the night and steal the leg back and go, well, you're not using it. Too bad. I bought it. It's mine. Whether I used it or not, that leg belongs to me because I bought it from you, right? So, no, you can't just take and use it again. The screenplay now belongs to them. Let's see. Royce follows it up with, I meant if I am a writer and they change the ending of a script, do they own the ending or can I use it again? Oh, no, they own it. They bought it from you. They bought it. Again, the chair analogy. You sell them the chair is theirs. Whether they use the chair as they bought it or whether they take it apart and reassemble it with some different pieces, it doesn't matter. It all belongs to them. So there you go. Fire Night Wing 1 writes, for the Oscars, instead of having no hosts, what would you say if they got the Muppets, Statler and Waldorf to host? I think that would get very tired very fast. I love the two grumpy guys. That's who he's talking about. The two grumpy guys who always heckle from the box seats in the Muppets. That's Statler and Waldorf. And they're hilarious and they're great in small doses. I think the novelty, to be honest, would probably wear off pretty fast. I think it would be funny for about 5, 6, 7 minutes. Nay, hilarious for 5, 6, 7 minutes. And then every time they come on screen after that over the next 3 hours would be, again. I just think it would get a little tired. So maybe them hosting a segment would be pretty fun. But overall, probably not. Screen Talk writes, and this is the final question of the day. Screen Talk writes, your thoughts on a Friends movie? I'm all for a Friends movie if they want to do. Why not? I mean, these are characters that people attach themselves to and like to adore. It's one of the most successful sitcoms of all time. One of the most celebrated things. Still one of the most highest viewed things on Netflix. It's pretty powerful. It wasn't Netflix. Anyway, whichever streaming service it on, I remember it was one of its highest all-time viewed things was Friends. So why not? I don't think it'll be, a $500 million movie, but a movie like that wouldn't have to be. You could make that movie for $30 million, make about $200 million at the box office, and have it be a smash hit at $200 million. So why not? And even if the movie sucks, why not give it a shot? If you can get everybody, and let's face it, they're not all super busy. Courtney Cox, God, I love Courtney Cox. Courtney Cox, Jennifer Aniston, Matt LeBlanc is probably the busiest out of all of them right now. Why not get them all back together? Get them all together. I think it'd be fun. I'd watch it. And I think a lot of people would watch it too. So why not? What's the downside, right? What's the downside of doing it? I say go for it. All right, guys, that will do. We're all caught up now for this installment of companion videos. We're all completely caught up to date. Hey, guys, don't forget, come back and join us tomorrow as Robert and I are back on the John Campea Show tomorrow morning, talking about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news. Don't forget, guys, for those of you who are Patreon supporters, we've got a new podcast that's exclusively for you guys, our Patreon supporters. It's Best of the Week. It's me, Robert, and Ashley, talking about our favorite news items for that week, as well as taking questions from our Patreon supporters as well. Make sure you check that out. It's available on the Patreon page, and I put links to it on the Patreon exclusive Facebook group as well, so make sure you guys check that out. All right, guys, that will do it for me. Thanks so much for being here, and thanks so much for sending in the questions, giving us great stuff to talk about, and supporting the channel at the same time. Thanks for being here, guys. My name's John Campea, and until the next video, bye-bye.